feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris back on it. Please give our socials those follows. You see them pop up.
Right.
Also, give the YouTube a subscribe. We're trying to get those numbers up. Maybe comment on it, share with your friends, or just give some hate comments. We haven't got any of those.
We need them.
So, if you don't like what's happening, just do something. Just interact with us in some way.
Interact with us.
As always, we record here at Angle Studio. If you're ever in Tucson, we're back on the pitch, back talking soccer. Who we talking?
I'm ready to open wide for some Gianfranco Zola.
That's right.
That's right. Gianfranco Zola, born July 5th, 1966 in Olena, Sardinia in Italy.
Now, tell me what you said.
About what? The Sardinia?
I didn't
know anyone lived there still. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's super country and super rural. Obviously, people live there. They're not just going to abandon an entire island, but people live. I didn't know they still had people, Chris.
Yes.
They got houses and mules and everything.
So his father, growing up, never played soccer. Oh. Saw a match when Franco was really young, and fell in love with it so much that he ended up becoming the director of the local club.
I mean, we're not working with a really deep bench here, D.
Well, to be honest, I'm pretty sure it was in the effect of being nobody wants to do that. So, because it was very rural, very country. But what he said was just at age 5 or 6, it turned into playing all day, every day.
Which is cool.
Because his dad kind of shaped him into this professional not out of you see today, where it's I know this path, that it was more oh no, I love this, my son loves this, and this is our lives now.
We're gonna put Sardinia on the map this time with people.
This time.
Oh, man. But yeah, growing up there, amazing soccer player, and people began to take notice, I feel like.
He was the standout player, I feel like, because he was the only one playing round clock.
Yeah.
And his touch on the ball was that's the thing that you almost can't teach, where I feel like that was where maybe his natural ability came in. Also, his size, I feel like.
He wasn't a particularly large individual.
So he had to keep the ball away, because he was always small, and I feel like he was always playing against older kids.
Yeah, because when you're good at sports, you always play against the older kids. They're never hey, why don't you take on those kindergartners back there?
It's true. And
Billy Madison with the dodgeball. It doesn't work like that. But he's doing that to the older kids.
That's right.
Now you're all in big trouble, Sardinians. At age 18, he signs his first pro contract with Nerese in 1984. And then in 1986, he spends the next 3 seasons with Torres in Sassari there in Sardinia.
I thought it was interesting because Torres is and they're not looked at it anymore because scouting has become so prevalent, but they were straight up a farm club for Napoli.
Were they really? That makes total sense considering geographically.
Yes. And that's what they were saying was in this time they were their Serie C team where they would loan players out to them and be these youth players, you want to see how they're doing and stuff like that, where you saw Zola go into this almost as the precursor of Napoli being this is our next guy coming up.
Because we already have a guy here. But Zola will be the next guy.
And this is exactly when their guy's coming up. This is exactly when Napoli becomes
the Leviathan we discussed in a previous episode.
And we've also talked about the economic situation in Italy, where it's very divided, north and south.
And the South, kind of like in America, not so much money compared to the industrial North.
And we see this kind of happening, and he really comes into Napoli, I feel like, at the perfect time.
On a stacked team.
Because he plays on this Serie C team and does very well. I think he has 88 appearances and 21 goals. Then I think he has something like 25 assists, but they were saying his skill was at that level that could be, top flight level. And then in 89, Napoli
million
comes
lira.
in, which was a lot.
Yeah, in that time, yeah.
Especially for that, but everybody said like you could see his skill. He was at the right age to come in. Napoli picks him up, and they pretty much said when they picked him up, they were like, this is our backup to Maradona, because sometimes he's getting too coked out and he can't come.
His dick is tired from all the orgies. That's what it is,
They were
Chris.
pretty much saying that we're signing this player to be his understudy.
Yeah, which is very smart. You want to hedge all your bets against your cocaine and orgy type thing. You
Well,
know?
for Gianfranco's credit, he said
He accepted the role.
And he said he wouldn't have been the player he was without literally shadowing Maradona. So he would go to the pitch when he would finally show up for training.
When
And he said he would
dry out.
watch exactly what he was doing and try and mimic it and really Maradona kind of took him under his wing, where they would stay after practice for like hours on end and like practicing free kicks, and like they became kind of like not like a team because they didn't really play together.
No, because he was his backup on
Yes.
these teams.
So it was an interesting relationship where
Maradona actually liked him.
Yes,
which
that's
is
what I mean.
crazy.
That's what I mean.
It's not
And-
like he was like, oh, this guy's coming to take my job. He's like, no, I kind of like this guy.
Yes.
Like, he may not, have all the fun times with me, but when it comes to soccer, I like this guy.
And one of the best quotes that Maradona said was, Napoli finally signed somebody smaller than
That was great. I wrote that down too.
It's just so good. To Napoli's credit, with this signing, Maradona starts missing some games. Zola starts kind of just plugging in where you want a youth player to plug in. He has a great goal against Genoa in injury time.
Yep.
So this is 1990 first season.
And they win the Serie A title that year.
And this is Zola's only league championship. And they said he really did it as an understudy position, where I think he played like 6 games or something at
6 important games.
and
Chris.
the Genoa goal was one of the big ones because it kept their 2-point lead above AC Milan, which we talk about in our
Check out that
in
episode.
our Maradona episode. But it's just that interesting thing where you're right, where Maradona accepted him in and he became such a better player. And it's questionable whether he would have become such a great player if he didn't have that senior, guidance.
There was a great quote. He said, I learned everything from Diego. I used to spy on him every time he trained and learned how to curl a free kick just like him.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to learn from anybody about soccer, that's a pretty good guy to learn from that's not named Pele.
And this was right at this tail end. This is what's kind of sad, because you wonder what would have happened
Yep.
if all this stuff with Maradona doesn't go down and they kind of like stay, and then
Well, Napoli starts, they win the Italian Super Cup in 1990, but Maradona's banned for drugs, as we talked about in that episode.
Also, he's hated amongst the Italian people at this point.
Well, those World Cup comments don't write themselves, Chris.
One of the funniest. I can't
God.
even get over how brash he is, especially in 1990. It's so.
Oh, he stuck it to those Guidos. Oh, beautiful.
So 91, they end up, because Zola's playing a bunch because Maradona's suspended. They end up finishing 7th, which was very disappointing from the league winning team that they knew that they kind of possessed. There wasn't like a big switch over in personnel. It was more of like, we lost Maradona and we're this much worse like this
Which
next
sucks
year.
because Maradona thought they were in good hands with Zola after, he suspended.
I feel like they were, but they needed a little bit more time. And there was also, I bet, a bunch of bullshit behind the scenes with it
Italian
seemed like
soccer with bullshit behind the scenes, Chris.
and if you-
surely you jest.
if you look at what happens in the next year when they sell everybody, you're like, oh yeah, they realized that they were going down hard.
These made Padres fire sales look tame, dude.
It's brutal.
God.
91-92, though, he does have 12 goals, 34 appearances, but it's under Claudio Ranieri, which is like he comes in for this 1 year. He'll come back later on, coach Chelsea. But this is when Maradona leaves, and this is when he says this quote where as he's leaving, as they part ways, he says, Napoli doesn't need to look for anybody to replace me. The team already has Zola. And that's what everybody felt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in his final season, this isn't with Ranieri. This is, I forget who.
Some other guy.
He ends up having 12 goals, 12 assists.
And he was a top joint assist leader in those 33 games he played in, which is pretty dope.
Well, this is what they were saying. It was he fit that role that Maradona had perfectly. Going into this season, there was actually a lot of hope going into this next season with Napoli, that like they literally were looking at it like, oh, we could be a top 4 team again. Like this, if he really comes on like Maradona, like we were thinking he was gonna, Zola, then like this Napoli team could be amazing. Boom, fire sale.
Oh man, this is like just an absolute dumpster fire of a sale. Boom, fire sale.
They moved the Browns overnight.
Yeah,
like it,
the Colts. Yeah.
the Colts. Yes, sorry.
Getting those Mayflower trucks are what your Alfa Romeo equivalent is in Italy, everybody.
And right away, there was a lot of heat as soon as Zola went, and he was just like, look at all these players who got sold.
Well,
so it wasn't even like...
He joined Parma for 13 million lira. It's not like he was going for free, you know?
Yes.
And he was smart to do it because the club is hemorrhaging money because they're selling their players because they... What was it, that Major League 2? I'm on my ass. I can't even meet next month's payroll.
Yes, and that's what happened after whatever happened with Maradona, because I bet they were banking on him and them winning and like all of that kind of shit, and it really bankrupts a club. They felt betrayed, but then he really said, like, you guys have to look at your own shit.
I can't do this all by myself.
Yes. One of his best quotes, too, and this is why Napoli, I feel like, felt not betrayed, but like so bummed out, was he literally said, and that next 3 years for Parma was probably my best football I've ever played.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's brutal.
Oh, you bastard.
And this is what I mean with the economic situation in Italy, was he goes from this Napoli southern, state, that was on top of the world,
and they took so much pride in beating people from the north. It's like finally we could stick it to them in something.
And that was the thing. They're on top of the world. Now they're financially corrupt, and he goes to the other team in Turin, not Juventus, but Parma, and that's just kind of like the way Italy operates,
It doesn't operate well.
It's brutal.
It's terrible.
But we see 93, he ends up scoring 18 goals. They win the UEFA, this is Parma, you win the UEFA Super Cup against AC Milan 2-1, which is his first European championship.
Dope.
And then in 94, they get second place in Serie A to Juventus. He ends up scoring 19 goals as joint goal scoring leader. And he even said, like, that was the one league championship he felt like they should have won.
Yeah. He's playing, and like you said, he's playing his best soccer
Yes.
at this stage of his career because he's in his prime.
95, they end up beating Juventus in the UEFA Cup 2-1, which this is what he said, because he was just like, we felt like we should have beat Juventus the last year for the league, and then we come back the next year and win the UEFA Cup and end up beating them 2-1. This is why he said it was like his best, because Parma's their crosstown rival.
Yeah.
So this is like what he was saying, because they were a good team. I don't think they were that great of a team, and he really kind of stepped up. But then you see, and this is what happens a lot with his style of play.
And coaching changes, like he doesn't fit what they want to do.
Because his style of play, you have to play the formation not around him, but you can't play certain formations with him.
Yeah.
So 96, they get Carlo Ancelotti, which I feel like we're going to have to do a episode on him, because he has all these fucking spider webs with so many. Same with Ranieri. That's the thing about these Italian coaches. But
they get around.
He comes in, and this is the thing that I saw a quote with him saying it, because they were like questioning after these 3 amazing years why he ended up losing his spot. And he said that he just didn't fit in the formation that he felt like was most effective. So they played a 4-4-2 with 2 tall strikers, and there really wasn't a spot for a withdrawn 5-5, really ball centric guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really clogs it up when you don't play in the right formation for him. And you see in 96, he kind of drops off. He also says that sometimes when that happens, like especially when a coach drops you, you mentally get out of
mentally
it.
you're just like, what am I doing wrong? And like in reality, it's like there's nothing wrong with you. They're
Yes.
just not using you properly. But still, it has to weigh on you when you've just been the effing man for Parma for the last 3-4 seasons.
Yes,
you know?
and then you're not even playing.
You just go full Goodwill Hunting. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
He said it later on that it helped him like with coaching, connecting to players, because like he's gone through these situations with coaches and they just like don't address it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Because
they keep
they're
it silent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're just like, well, you're not playing right now.
it's like, we're doing this. Okay, well, why?
Thank you. Yes. For Parma, he had 102 appearances, 49 goals. It probably was his best, like 100, like almost a goal every other game.
Yeah, which for soccer is very good.
Especially in this time. This is a lower scoring Italian league. Like
Defense.
all of this, you know what I mean? Like 2 European championships, 1 second place, which is still great.
Damn, dude.
And then in 96, this is the thing that is very interesting, and this is kind of how flipped the Italian league and the English league are, is the English league almost went bargain hunting,
Yeah,
where they saw that Parma wasn't necessarily using him and Ancelotti didn't want necessarily anything to do with him because he just didn't fit in his system. And Chelsea came in and bought him for literally 4.5 million.
which is crazy because it's like, this guy, that's all you had to pay for him? Like, come on.
He's getting to the... So this is the thing sometimes is like he was getting to the end of his contract. He had a bigger contract in Napoli, but still he should have at least warranted like 10 to 12.
He's only 30 years old.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like he's an old man.
And that's why you see this where it really is bargain hunting, where it's a team that just wants to get him off the books almost. And
Yeah.
they're like, we'll take significantly less of what they paid.
Yeah, just like, hey, here you go.
Well,
Enjoy.
And it was interesting because there were a couple other teams asking about him, and there was already a couple of Italian players at Chelsea. And he asked because in this time, some English clubs, because almost all the English clubs were all English player centric.
Yeah.
And sometimes they were not very welcoming to foreign players.
The English? No.
I've never heard of it.
I have never. That, Chris, memo to self. I need
English.
to research this.
The people with the greatest cuisine in the world.
They're called spices!
So he asked, and they said that no, this is very professional, because this is the first era where you kind of get like more professional in that.
No, the button down, now you're making bank, because I remember you said they started, the Champions League or whatever at this
The Champions League starts up a little bit there. Chelsea hasn't made it in it yet.
True, but
this
I mean,
is that
the more
time.
money
yes.
is being, and the TV money and all this advertising is being pumped into this sport.
Yes, the Premier League money, yes,
The Premier
yes.
League, sorry. But yeah, that's where my mind went
You're right.
there.
You're right. So he joins up actually with Ruud Gullit, which was a big one. And just like this English team with like Dennis Wise, who's known to just be like a hard nose. Mark Hughes, I think, ends up being and so like it's a very good Chelsea team that hasn't been good for, not like they've just been like a mid-table team, and they finally kind of put money into it, but they did it in a smart way.
Yeah, they weren't just like breaking the bank, just being like what the Manchester United route that
Exactly.
they were going, dumping money. But that's a savvy move by them. Holy cow.
Well, this is kind of like what you needed to do was kind of bargain hunt for guys who just weren't there, because Man U was dominating in this. This is their window of domination. But you see in his first season, he has a great goal against Man U. If you ever want to look at that, he just dribbles in the box.
Oh, that was dope, dude.
And then in 97, he ends up winning the FA Cup, and it's the first time Chelsea won the FA Cup in over 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, this is like the first trophy in over 30 years. So like, this is like the breaking of like this, them being like a mid-table team to them being like a topper echelon team. And a lot of this is what they said, was a lot of the credit was going to him and then a couple other guys like David Wise and Ruud Gullit, and like he had one of the big. So like in the FA Cup run, they were down 2-0 to Liverpool.
Yep.
And he ended up having the big, like when they came back, he was like a huge part of it. They ended up beating him 4-2. He has some of the best dribbles because
man, it's crazy.
Well, he really gets people to lunge, and then he'll make his move. That's how much faster he is, and it's really in the Liverpool game, he really makes Jamie Carragher look like an asshole, which I love more than
Pick up your jockstrap, Governor.
Almost anything. So you see this kind of resurgence of Chelsea, and he's kind of like not like the head of it, but definitely one of the top players right away.
They wouldn't have been able to do it without him.
Yes.
Like if they had if they had a different player, but yet still the other guys, he's almost like the one that makes the engine run.
Yes,
from
exactly.
my understanding.
Yes,
yeah.
that's actually a good thing because they definitely had a great formation around him, and he definitely was that like Messi style, just a little bit less of like that focal point of offense. And then in 97-98 season, he had his first hat trick against Derby County at Stamford Bridge, which is where Chelsea play. And then 97, I would say, was his best year. 97-98 was his best year with Chelsea.
Yeah.
He had a hat trick, and then they proceed to do 3 trophies.
Yep.
So that's the thing is 96, they end up winning 96-97, they end up winning the FA Cup, which kind of broke their drought of trophies.
Yep. Now it's just trophy after trophy.
98, 97, 98, they fucking win 3 trophies, and it's kind of like a
League Cup,
Cup Winners' Cup.
And Cup Winners' Cup. I find that fun, Cup Winners' Cup.
That's why they actually ended up renaming that because they were like, guys, because that's a European Cup.
Okay.
The Super Cup is where the FA Cup and the league winner play. Okay. And then the Cup Winners' Cup was the European Cup, and this was the thing that he was kind of saying was for Chelsea, his best stint was the end of 96 and the beginning of 97 because the end of 97 he ends up getting like injured.
Yeah.
So going into the Cup Winners' Cup, he ends up getting injured, but then comes in the second half and kind of like gives the assist to David Wise to get this European Cup, to give Chelsea's second ever European trophy and the first one in a while. And then now you get this feeling at Chelsea like, oh, this is a real team that's viable, even though Manchester United is just winning every single
They got uniforms and everything now.
They got uniforms and everything.
And Zola's not making the league minimum.
I make the league minimum. That's one of my favorite lines.
How good are you, Zola? I'm making the league minimum.
No, this is so not that the 4.5 million was like a crazy.
No.
But now they're looking at it and they're like, oh, that was a bargain.
Yeah.
Like that was a great pull by Chelsea. They have all these players coming together. The next season, no. I think it's actually one more season. So it's 98-99. Mm-hmm. This is when they had, because this was like the first time that the Champions League huge money came in.
Yeah.
98-99, they end up having to play Liverpool the last game of the league to see who was going to be 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
So going into the game, Chelsea was 4th and Liverpool was 5th. If Liverpool won, they would switch places, and they were calling it the $20 million game.
That's dope.
Because it literally meant that much, and Chelsea went on and beat them to play in their first ever Champions League in
Liverpool.
In 99-2000, and that's what was so awesome, thus creating their whole rivalry in the 2000s. Like it was pretty good.
Just based on that investment alone, you spent £4.5 million. 3-4 years later, you made £20 million based on one game that this guy played in. Holy shit.
Well, that's what they were saying with the TV money, and the Champions League money has kind of gotten crazy where they're like, no, we're going to buy that player. I don't give a fuck if he doesn't work out. You know what I mean? Like that's
we're going to buy him so someone else can't.
Yes, there's been that too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Chelsea's done it to Tottenham.
Have they really?
It's been awesome.
Oh, God. They don't even fit. They'll ride the bench, but they can't have nice things.
They don't even fit the rhyme scheme.
They're injured. One of them's... This guy here is dead.
This guy here is dead. So cross him off then.
99 2000 champions.
What's our plan here? I want to be bad enough so we could relocate to Miami.
I want to be bad enough so we can relocate to Sardinia.
99 2000, and this is an interesting because he's talked shit on this, which I actually kind of agree on, but he got because there's a huge rotation because squads weren't as big as they are now.
Yeah.
So they went to the Champions League and he rotated and didn't play a lot of league games, and he played a lot of Champions League games. They were going to lose in the Champions League, so he was like, why am I playing in the Champions League and not in the league? They didn't do as well that year. Mm-hmm. He kind of was talking shit on that. He was kind of resentful for it. The next year, 2000-2001, we get Claudio Ranieri coming back in.
Uh-oh.
And he shows a lot of the veterans the door.
Yeah.
So when Ranieri comes in, he's literally like, David Wise, you're gone. I think Gullet's already gone by this point. He really does a huge shakeup, and he lets people know, like, if you're not a youth player, there's not going to be a lot of game time for you. We're trying to, like, this is a big rebuild.
How old are you? 33. Go home, Grandpa.
Yes. And Zolo said it was kind of like disheartening, kind of like 2001, 2002, he didn't play a lot. He was, like I said,
Only like 3 goals I read. Yeah, that year.
got into his head a lot. He said he felt like he wasn't training as hard. He felt like this was the end of his career. That was the other thing. At 2001, 2002, he went on vacation on the summer because everybody gets summer vacation, just like school, buddy.
Only you're getting paid for that. You're not a student athlete anymore.
And he said he decided to buckle down because he knew he was good enough to still play at the level that he was. 2002, 2003, he comes back, he has 16 goals, and he looked like the player that everybody knew he was.
Yeah, it's like you see these older guys, they pulled, one of these seasons out of their ass. It's like, no, it's been within them the whole time. There's just extenuating circumstances, right? So
33, 34. He, at this point, has kind of like said to himself, like, I'm not going to play for Chelsea next year. His contract has come up. He had 312 appearances, 80 goals.
Whew.
In 2003, he was voted Chelsea's best ever player,
which is awesome
because he really led this resurgence of them being a trophy-winning team.
Yeah,
not just one trophy, but like 4 in his span. I think they won another FA Cup. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I forgot. But this is the thing that they were saying was like he could sign another contract. He said he goes on holiday like he always does, summer vacay,
of course,
to Myrtle Beach.
Hang out with Ashley Schaefer and Ashley Schaefer BMW.
Woo! And
Ashley Schaefer.
I'm wearing my boner pants.
Deep in my plums.
And he tells his wife he wants to help his boyhood club go from the 2nd division team to the 1st division team.
Cagliari.
I call him Calgary. Just kidding.
Calgary? Cagliari.
Which his family was totally into. They were like, oh, that's great. You're at the twilight of your career. He ends up signing a verbal contract.
Summer 2003.
Which are broken all the time.
No, your word is your bond, Chris. Isn't this Fast and the Furious logic?
I saw Gary Neville had an interview with him, and they were like, well, the rumor was you agreed, and then the next night this takeover happened. And he goes, nah, it was more like 5 days. And it was like, oh my God. So he literally agrees, and then Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire, comes in and buys Chelsea.
Yeah.
He does this not knowing that Zolo's going because he was one of his favorite players.
Oh, jeez.
And I swear to God, Roman Abramovich bought this like he was playing FIFA, and he was just like, I'll buy whoever I want. And Zolo says, no, I'm not going to play for Chelsea next year. This is what he tells him, because he's just like, well, we could break that contract. Don't worry. And he's just like, no, I'm going to go home. We're going to, I'm done kind of playing top flight soccer. And
weather's much nicer there, too.
And he goes, well, how about I buy the club?
Yeah.
That's what Roman said. He was just like, oh, Jesus, which is still a rumor that's not like true, or not true, but not,
it's
verified.
Urban legend.
There you go.
But yeah, he plays for Cagliari for a couple of years, and helped him get promoted to Serie A.
Plays 2 years, gets him into the Serie A, and does exactly what he was saying he wanted to do. Ends up retiring and goes into coaching.
Yeah, did you want to talk about his World Cup and Euros? Or
Oh,
no?
yeah.
Because he's on that 94 Baggio team.
Yeah. Backup.
That's right.
Man, I spaced on the 94 team. Jeez.
Yeah.
So in 91, he gets his first World Cup appearance after and this is what they were saying, after Maradona kind of like goes away, it shows that he could play in that role that Italy has use for.
Yeah.
That, you know.
He's on that youth team. Who's coaching this youth team at this time?
Oh, yeah. Give it to me.
Cesare Maldini.
Yeah.
That's right. Go listen to that episode, everybody.
Man, I spaced on that. Was a good one.
See?
But that's what I mean. It's very Italian.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and then he's essentially the backup to the 94 team that
Oh, damn penalty kicks.
that becomes second. And this is the thing too.
Didn't he get sent off in this World Cup too, I had read?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sent off against Nigeria for
I was just trying to think of
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but that they voted him in the top 3 with Baggio,
Del Piero.
Del
right?
Piero, and him, which they were saying kind of sucks because he's like maybe our 3rd or 4th best player, and he's on the bench. You know what I mean? There's not a position because Baggio's going to be
doing Baggio things.
Which it's interesting, but you look at it now, they would probably just force him in.
Yeah.
Euros 96, he's in. Mm-hmm. Plays more of a role, but Italy doesn't do well. I think they lose 3 straight, or not 3 straight, but I think they
lose
only
in the group stage.
Yeah, they only play 3.
Mm-hmm. And 98 World Cup, though, he's not called on by Cesare Maldini to join him, which is unfortunate.
Well, you look at this is when he goes from playing in Italy, and a lot of the international teams, especially back then, would kind of talk shit on that when you go play. Mm-hmm. They would almost, especially because Italy was like the top league.
Yeah.
At this point, they were like almost pumping the most money in. And it was almost like you were going to England, not a lesser league, but like not a better league. You know what I mean? And there was like question marks about his form.
Which is insane. I would figure all of these, national teams would scout him going, yeah, I want that guy. Not the guy playing, but the guy on the bench who in practice looks insane.
Well, it's crazy because, I mean, also Maldini knows him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's coached him, but like maybe he knew that he wasn't. I don't know. To be honest with
he
that,
just wanted to play defense in that World Cup, as we discussed.
It's interesting. And that was the end of his international. It's interesting to think that he almost won in '94 as the backup,
like he won in Napoli.
90. Yeah.
Oh man,
That's
he's
weird.
the best backup ever.
I almost spaced on his international thing altogether. But yeah, he was definitely a good throughout his career. And I feel like 98, something probably happened where maybe somebody, I'm trying to think of who was their striker in that time, but I don't know. Because I think Baggio was still there.
Yeah, I think he played. That was the last one he played in.
Yeah.
But, as far as coaching, though, because he became a coach after his playing career ends.
Became a head coach, but really bounced around.
Yeah, he did.
And a lot of people were talking about this he was a very, like, patch coach, which is because he's a very player's coach. Like, he's not like a coach's coach.
He's like Guido Ted Lasso.
Woo!
Yeah.
I think one of his best stints was with West Ham, 2008 to 2010. He did Italy, U21 and 16, in different times. He coached Watford for a year.
He was in Qatar for a while.
Oh, that was the
World Cup.
Yeah. So like he took a bunch of money for that. And then recently he was Chelsea's assistant coach, where people were saying that's probably his best position is not the head coach, and probably an assistant coach on a huge team. Because I was watching stuff about his coaching. They were like, no, he's good, but he might need to find. I mean, coaching now is just so crazy. It's such a high turnover rate that it's not
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I did like his nickname, though, what they referred to him as, the Magic Box.
Yep.
Which made me think of that Who song, Magic Bus. Which I listened to after reading that for about like 3 hours straight.
Ranieri would call him the wizard. And then Ranieri said something, I think he quoted him as saying, yeah, he tries anything because he's the wizard. And you're just like, all right.
60% of the time it works every time.
Well, for me, because Zola is one of my favorites, you know what I mean, for just being a Chelsea fan, because he really had that resurgence of Chelsea in the time that they needed. When money came in, Roman Abramovich literally bought them because he watched them beat like this Stuttgart in the UEFA Cup final,
Which is crazy.
So it is very like serendipitous that he kind of came and had that bad time with Parma right at the end after he was doing so ridiculously well.
He had like
And
a
then-
Kurt Warner career almost, as far as like not necessarily stocking shelves, but just like an up and down, like, you know.
He commented on it, and this is why I feel like I bring it up, because he was just like, when the team was into me, I was playing great, and you were just like, oh yeah, that kind of did feel like when the
They're
team was
just
like,
not that
you are
into you,
good.
Gianfranco.
Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.